president of the CPCA. I'm here before the Kings. I had surgery yesterday, but everything's good. So I was going to do some brief introductions as we wait for one of our speakers to arrive, and then we'll be having on for our first speaker, who's Jed Ross he's the director of the Office of Risk Management in the Mayor's Office, who will be speaking about the budget. And then Councilmember Frumin will be speaking after that, just having a conversation with soon-to-be first vice president, unless there's a big surprise, McGregor, of the board, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A after that, time allowing. So just a few things to start us off. First, I wanted to give some thanks to several board members who are retiring, so to speak, from the board this year after several years in service. Some of them are here, some are not, but at least we'll have it on the record. Alice Kelly, I want to start with. She's been on the board since before I had joined. And I can't tell you what an asset she's been. I can attest to what I know since I've been on the board, but she's been headed up our sustainability work for many years. She's been very active on anything she's been asked to do across the years. She's been an extremely valuable advisor to me the entire time, since I've been president, on many things, neighborhood and substantive. And she'll be greatly missed, although she has already promised, so I'm saying this in the record too, to continue to be involved in sustainability issues. So I really appreciate that. So thank you very much, Alice. Nick Ives, who's managing our tech at the moment. Our more recent member of the board, who I recruited briefly at the ANC's loss of our game. You may know him perhaps as a deeply expert neighbor on water issues for the neighborhood. So any issues with that going forward, and I would love to help. It's a passion, I would say it is. He's been very helpful to us on a variety of issues over the last several years. We'll miss him too, and what I'd like to say he's going to stay active as a member. I'm less confident in that regard because his hopes are possibly to leave the country for a bit, so we'll see. And then Kathy Gibbons joined the board with a particular passion for affordable housing and voucher issues, where she's provided really extraordinary expertise and energy to address those issues, which has just been incredibly helpful. And thankfully, I understand quite happy to teamwork on those issues for us too, if not from the board. So we're very lucky in that respect. Finally, a little bit belatedly perhaps, but as you may know, Isaac Bowers joined one of our two neighborhood commissions this year. He was our treasurer for several years, which is a big deal because it's very hard to find a treasurer. I think that's how I stuck my way into the board several years ago. But in addition to being willing to do that, once he won the commission seat, he couldn't stay on the board, but he was willing to stay on as an officer to be treasurer through the year, which we really appreciate. So thanks to him and extensively that guest tonight. And finally, I wanted to thank a former board member, Chuck, Karen Davis's husband. I don't know if you knew him well, but he was on the board. Clark. That's right.
Clark.
Yeah, Clark. I'm part of the
No, it's okay.
And here is Karen. Thank you. Both, as I'm sure you know, very active members for a very long time. And he was a member of the board as well in years past. I can say personally from our experience, during my tenure, they provided some very thoughtful, sage input on various issues across the recent years. I'm sure he'll be missed by many in the neighborhood. There's a very nice little bit for him still posted, and up on the post mentions his time with CPCA as well. But I just want your thoughts to Karen and to your family, and thank you both for your support. Moving on, in terms of activities for the year, I'll keep this brief because you've seen this pretty much in the packet that basically I put together for the meeting while I signed it. But we've been pretty active on several issues this year. Two of the principal ones were traffic safety on Reno and 4th Street, where we've been collaborating with the ANC and with the parents. Interesting story there, which I'll briefly touch on, but it's just sort of indicative of how these things work. We've been working on this topic for quite a while. It was initially an issue associated with the Connecticut Avenue traffic redesign, which you may recall through the bike lanes issue, where we had an opportunity to get DDOT to commit to investigating Reno Road, particularly because of the impacts of that redesign like that on other major arteries through the community. And they did look into it, but then it sort of stalled out, partly with the redesign stalling out, and partly because there was a reorientation of priority in DDOT towards neighborhoods that were more disadvantaged in terms of who they focus on for priority projects, which is understandable. Nonetheless, it is still a real issue for us. There's real danger of children crossing that street every day during rush hour. I know the parents are concerned about it. We're concerned about it. There are broader implications up and down the corridor in getting VDOT to commit to planning for this coming year and acting on it in 27. That said, as we'll be hearing shortly tonight, given budget constraints for all those nerves that will happen next, we want to make sure as much as possible this incrementally happens in the interim, so we continue to talk with them about that this year and see where that goes. But I think we're already making some headway. Second issue, which speaks to what Kathy's working on with this, is the issue of affordable housing and vouchers and just the challenges of ensuring appropriate wraparound services for folks who need it in our neighborhood. We cherish the rich neighborhood here. We're trying to promote and grow that concept and reality in the neighborhood. But for some, it requires some more effort to make sure that they're getting what they need, and that's been a challenge. So we're trying to continue to weigh in, at least from a part perspective, on the many folks in apartments and others parts of the neighborhood who really could use more assistance, and whether they're getting it. So we're going to come on that, but we've heard some positive input on that. Councilmember Frumin, I'm sure will speak to that tonight. I know he's been supportive of the concepts, which we appreciate. Lastly, is just community engagement. I think especially these days, it's been a hard time for many of us. People have been leaving jobs this year. It's been a psychic moment for DC in profound ways that we're all familiar with, both budgetary and philosophical and otherwise, tanks in the street. We think it's really a valuable time to really promote community in the community. So we're continuing our efforts and taking advantage of the dues you all provide to us to help have more activities in terms of one that Mike's been doing recently on a Halloween party, which is great. Joint parties with Rosedale for the annual jazz picnic, which will be coming on June 28th. I hope you can make it, or possibly July 12th for the rain date. And more to come on that front. But anyway, so more to come this coming year. But the last thing we're starting to work around, and I'll leave it with this, is some work with OP on rezoning for Connecticut Avenue. It's kind of a perennial issue since I've been involved with CPCA and of course before as well. Basically what we're hoping to do there is just inform how they're engaging with the commission. Other neighborhood groups are involved as well. We'll certainly be coordinating about those topics. Our goal remains to try to maximize affordable housing, honor the historic district, kind of tree line, beautiful neighborhood, kind of concept of the neighborhood, and ensure that whatever happens down there is going to enable and enhance the vibrancy of the community. So that's sort of how we're coming into it. We're hoping to have some conversation before the commission hears their plans or proposals, probably in about a month. So more to come on that and coming into the new year, I'm sure, as well. With that, let me hand you over to Jed, and then I guess maybe Jed can hand you over to Mike and the council member, and when they're done, we'll have some Q&A. Get the sense of that was last I thought it was. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then after that, anybody who's available, if you're a member, I mean, come anyway, if you're a member, I've got quote tickets, which are actually wristbands you can just hand over at Fat Pete's after the meeting for either a glass of wine or a beer up to $10. So, looking forward to seeing you there too. Thank you. Jed?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Here we go. All right. Good job. Try that time. All right. Good evening. Jed Ross. Loud. I can almost be loud without. You can probably hear me without.
Easier with the mic, please.
I will. I'm not going to do that. I said I'm loud, but I'll keep it down here so it's not too loud for you all. I'm Jed Ross. I'm the Chief Risk Officer and the Director of the Office of Risk Management. I've been with the administration since 2015, but I've been a district government employee since 2005. So I've been around for quite some time. And I want to thank you all for having me here today. CPCA is an important organization. I'm here to just talk about the GROW budget, the mayor's GROW budget. We are looking to support a bold vision to really grow our budget. If we don't grow our budget, we are going to lose out. The mayor is kind of working to double down, and the administration wants to ensure that we are putting forward a vision where we're actually going to have more revenue so we can support all the wonderful services that we always provide to our residents. I'm not going to repeat everything on the slide or on the deck for you guys, but I am going to talk and point out a few different issues so you can learn more about the budget generally. You can always go to budget.dc.gov in order to get a lot of information that's out there. But this budget reflects the mayor's values of accountability, opportunity, and community investment. So,
Can you lower the lights so you can see the screen better?
what's that?
Can we lower the lights so we can see the screen better?
I'm happy to do that. I don't know if maybe Mike or Ms. Kelly could do that.
Oh, yeah, that
There we
helps.
are.
There we go. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
by the way, this is Kendall from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations in Ward 3. Many of you probably already know her, but just making sure. Thank you so much for helping out with the slides. I also want to point out I am a local. I live on 34th near Mass Ave. So this is my neighborhood as well. So DC had a strong rebound in 2024. Through our joint efforts as a city, we were able to make real great progress. We're the fastest growing population of any state in the country. Violent crime dropped to the lowest level in 30 years. Really, truly a pretty special and magnificent thing. And we had 26 million visitors for tourism. And we, of course, as you know, had 28 million audits, 29 balanced budgets, and have maintained 52 days of cash on hand. It's a credit to the council, our council member here, to the mayor, to our CFO, just running our city so well. And we're thankful for all the hard work that everyone puts into all of our budgets every year. So next slide, yeah, how did we close the gap this year? It's been a challenging year. As you all probably are very aware, through the congressional failures to properly manage the budget, we are looking at some pretty big shortfalls. And one of the ways in order to manage that, we've worked through very strong fiscal policy in order to figure that out. We have fortunately avoided doing furloughs and layoffs, and the way we did that was by implementing a hiring freeze and cutting non-personal services costs. We also shifted, I'll have to bring this up a little more. We've also shifted a lot of our spending to later years, while also capturing additional revenues, but we've made sure to manage key investments and continue to provide for those key investments in our community. Next slide. As you know, for the upcoming fiscal year, we are facing pretty tough headwinds as a city economically. They're looking at around a $1 billion decrease in our budget over the next 4 years due to job loss and taxes and other scenarios and circumstances that are a big impact to our city. The revenue estimates are down, but this is why it drives home the urgency for a growth agenda, and why the administration and the mayors put forward an agenda in order to grow our revenues so this impact isn't so great, and we can continue providing all the wonderful services that we do provide for our residents. So, despite those challenges with those economic headwinds, we built a sound and sustainable budget. We've achieved structural balance without new taxes. We're dipping into reserves. We're reduced $243 million in spending and avoided $500 million in future obligations. We're just making sure that we're doing a smarter deployment of our services and continuing to provide those services to all of our residents. In order to build a growth agenda, we're thinking about 3 big questions. The people. Does it keep people and families in DC and attract new residents? Does the economy hit new jobs, new activity in order to bring in those funds and activities to the district resident services? And are we building and attracting for new businesses and creating new jobs? So those are the 3 things that we're thinking about in our growth agenda. Some of the things that we're doing also to help build in that growth agenda are figuring out ways, and I want to make sure that the group over here can still see me, so I'll move this way. It's streamlining zoning and figuring out about repealing burdensome processes. We're reducing business fees and taxes. We're removing barriers, and we're revitalizing vacant lots. So those are some of the things that we're doing make sure that we continue to grow and attract new things for the city. All right, next slide. One of the really fantastic things that we're doing is investing in what makes DC exciting, and that is bringing the Commanders home to RFK. We're really, really excited about that. It's a generational change. We're also transforming Capital One Arena, making sure that that continues to be an economic driver for the city, bringing in revenues. And we're also supporting all of our national theater, the Lincoln Theater, the Howard Theater, to make sure that our theater is driving business. We're continuing plans for the downtown comeback that the mayor promoted in last year's budget. We're not stopping with any of that. We're activating in Chinatown for cultural initiatives. We are revitalizing commercial corridors and enforcing vending rules. We're also increasing new office conversions by expanding the housing in downtown, including this year, excitingly, both Georgetown and Mount Vernon. The FY26 budget continues to invest in our schools. We are looking at a $2.8 billion total investment in our schools, with a $123 million increase in fiscal year 25, a $270 million increase for DCPS and DC public charter schools teacher raises. We're also putting forward $2 billion for school modernization, $10 million in tech upgrades, and continuing to fully fund childcare and early education programs. We also want to invest in a safe DC. We know that's critical, even though the crime rates are down to a 30-year low. That doesn't mean we're slowing down in our efforts to continue to reduce crime to make the city as safe as possible. We're giving $30 million to ensure that there are MPD office hiring and technology. There's $7.3 million allocated for FEMS for safety gear and their fleet. We're looking at moving forward on the new DC jail, which continues to be a priority for all of us. One of the items that is very important to both the mayor and, of course, to the federal administration is ensuring that the city is clean and looks great. And so with that, we are continuing our investments in our clean corridors. We continue to put forward money to expand curbside composting, DPW shifts, to invest in the cleaning processes around the city. We're putting forward $4.6 million in clean corridors, and the Department of Buildings has a $1.8 million nuisance abatement fund in order to make sure we continue to keep the city clean. The mayor continues to invest in housing and economic development. One of the really big things that the mayor has done is been the leader in the country, if not the world, around affordable housing. We should all be proud. The council, the mayor, continue to invest in affordable housing in our city, putting forward huge numbers, really comparative to other jurisdictions. We are one of the leaders in the United States related to this. And the mayor has put the numbers back up to $100 million in her proposal to the council related to the Housing Production Trust Fund. We've also allocated $23 million for the Home Purchase Assistance Program, and continue to put forward economic development around $6 million in repairs for those 3 theaters that we talked about. The mayor continues to propose and invest in libraries and rec centers, investing in the places where community happens, where we are right now. $166 million for 6 modernizations of libraries, $188 million for upgraded recreation centers and pools, and $89 million for a year-round youth sportsplex at RFK, which would just be unbelievable. Indoor track, gymnastics, just truly a place where currently we hear that people have to go outside of the district for some of these activities. And this will be an opportunity to make sure that people are coming and playing within DC's borders. We continue to invest in health. We're strengthening access to care across the board, something that I know is near and dear to everyone in the district. 90% $97 million is being allocated to support increased costs for Medicaid services, and $300,000 for Safe at Home to serve 795 seniors on a wait list and expand meal delivery programs. We continue to invest in human services. We're expanding support for our most vulnerable residents. $18.9 million increase in continuum of care for homeless services, $7.6 million for permanent supportive housing for 156 families. Next slide. We're investing in transportation and the environment, as we always do, building a more connected and sustainable DC. $76 million investment to Wamata for bus lanes and pedestrian tunnels. $6 million to provide transportation for students through school in Ward 7 and 8 in safe passage zones. And a $13 million expansion of the capital bike share. And finally, $74 million to build out pedestrian and bike trail network. Something that's near and dear to my heart as an agency within the government operations cluster, we're continuing to invest in government operations. We need to be able to support our ability to function and operate and have capable backbone of our government. And so $7.9 million is for DCS school repairs and maintenance, $2.1 million for enhanced cybersecurity and the cybersecurity infrastructure, and building a new home for DC archives, which I know is important to all of us. All of our most precious old items, new items, things that are created in order to keep and maintain our history. Talking a little bit now about some of the Ward 3 investments that are being made. For Ward 3, this year's proposed budget includes a $24 million modernization for Chevy Chase Library, a $15 million modernization for Chevy Chase Rec Center, and $51 million to modernize and renovate public schools, which includes a little bit at Hardy and MacArthur within Ward 3. So obviously you can learn more about the budget at budget.dc.gov, which has lots of information about the proposed budget for the mayor. And I am happy to stick around and answer any questions and discuss anything related to the mayor's proposed budget. I don't know if from a timing perspective, I'm going to go after the council member or if I should answer now. Happy to speak while it's fresh, but either way.
Yeah, I think if you've got a minute to stick around, if it's okay with you, council member, yeah, let's go ahead and take 2-3 questions.
Sounds great. Please.
You've overwhelmed us with a lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers.
And
a lot of
I have no idea whether any of these numbers are adequate to solve whatever problem they're trying to solve. I'm assuming that you believe they're adequate to cover it. I'll take your word for it.
100%.
But you're spending a lot of money, and I don't understand where this money is coming from. You started by telling us we have a very tight budget. So if we're spending all of this money, where is the income to pay for all of these things?
So I guess let me just reiterate. We actually have a budget to support all of these initiatives. We're through our taxes, through all of our income streams. The budget that we have, this is a proposed budget that is balanced.
So you don't have to raise any taxes to find the money to pay for all of these things?
No, and actually it's really important to the mayor to ensure that we aren't raising taxes, right? This is a growth agenda. And with that growth agenda, we want to ensure that we're figuring out ways to attract residents, attract businesses, we want to attract people, and grow our revenue.
Okay, but all of that is good for the future. But this year, where is the money gonna, I understand the investment is gonna bring it in the future.
Sure.
But we're in this particular year.
The proposed budget is fully funded, it's fully balanced. There's no need for extra money. We don't want to raise taxes. We don't want to become a jurisdiction where people feel that if they come here, they're going to have to pay more. The restaurants aren't going to be able to survive. They're going to close. We don't want that to be the case. So the way the budget has been formulated and proposed by the mayor and the budget office, along with the support of the entire cabinet, is a sound budget, no new taxes, meeting the goals and the efforts of the mayor and for our community.
Just keying off that briefly, if you could speak to, not to put you all in your position, but if you could speak to what makes you nervous, if anything, about future congressional action, anything else that challenge our budgetary situation,
You know, Ms. Gibbon actually raised that same question for me. And what I'll say is, you know, the city is, you know, through the council's leadership, through the mayor's leadership, through the CFO's leadership, as a team, and all of the government employees, we are running the government really efficiently. It doesn't mean that we're perfect, it doesn't mean that everything's done always exactly the way it needs to be done, but 28 balanced budgets, right? Continue to grow the city, continue to deliver services in the best way possible. And we are, you know, the mayor is prepared for handling whatever. She's shown, you know, grace in making sure that she can tackle anything. I mean, look at bringing the Commanders back. Look at keeping the Wizards here, right? Doing lots of big things. The Frederick Douglass Bridge, right? Doing great things for our city to continue to grow it and to continue to provide the best world-class services. And so we have lots of budget mechanisms in the event that we need to address them. They're not forever solutions. We are looking at budget shortfalls over the next 4 years, which I mentioned earlier. It's something that is a concern for us. And it's something that we have to be smart and savvy about. But ultimately, that's why we're doubling down to grow our city. We want more people here paying more taxes, we want more jobs, we want more businesses, we want our commercial property to continue to increase in value so we have the ability to meet those particular challenges as they come. So that's the goal. That is why this is the mayor's growth agenda, to make sure that we're growing and we're becoming a stronger city.
So Jen, how do the stadium numbers fit into all of this? And do you think that the budget should be done as a separate piece from the stadium?
So I will say I do not. Let me just get some of the information to make sure I can speak to that. I want to speak to that accurately. But I will just say, no, we believe that the budget as proposed should go forward. We think that RFK should participate in the budget. It should be in the budget. And what I will say is the expectation for RFK and the Commanders is an expectation of $2 billion in taxes, more than 10,000 residents who are obviously, you know, contributing to our tax base. 14,000 to 17,000 jobs, 2,000 permanent jobs, $1.6 billion of direct spending, 5,000 to 6,000 new homes. You know, this is what we're looking to do. And I will just say, I personally was involved in the acquisition of the land for National Stadium. And when I did that, I was back in the Attorney General's office many years ago. It was not, you know, there were things happening there, but it was not what it is today. There are grocery stores and housing units and restaurants and a place for us to have activities and the revitalization that's happened there. And we are looking at paying off our bond for the Nats Stadium 10 years before it came due. It's a good investment in our city. It's a beautiful place that we all can use and appreciate. And the same will happen at the RFK site. And so, it's the mayor's position, it's my position, that it's a good thing to make that investment and to do it now within this budget.
Hi, I'm Amy Shannon. I live here in Ward 3. I've been a proud volunteer attorney. I have done work for the legal counsel for the elderly in the past. And one of the reasons I'm here tonight was to take advantage not only of the fact that Councilmember Frumin is here, but also even more serendipity, you are here to urge you to fully fund, restore the $31.7 million access to Justice Fund, which helps our neighbors, our fellow DC citizens in need.
I appreciate that. Definitely that's information that I'm able to take back and relay, of course, to the budget office. No question, I'm happy to relay that information.
So that does bring up the question, are there any things that you cut in order to save the things that you talked about funding? Are there any things that you're cutting?
Sure, I spoke about that a little bit, and I want to be very respectful of the council member at his time. I do not want to, occupy that. He obviously has he's very important, has lots of information to provide you all and answer a lot of your questions. But yes, the mayor made the decision to, withhold doing a hiring freeze and making sure that we were delaying expenditures on certain things that we could delay in order to meet our budgetary obligations, both this year and for next year. So thank you guys, I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for having me here.
Just wanted to bestow upon you this important honor. I will cherish this at home and be glad to see you and my kids, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, and Jed, you're welcome to stick around, and if we've got time at the end, we can take more questions. Hi, just to introduce myself, my name is Mike Reifer, as far as I'm the CPCA Vice President. I'm really excited to get to introduce our Ward 3 Council member, Matt Frumin. Come on up. So just to give you some sense of the format here, we've invited, and I want to thank the council member staff for agreeing to coordinate our dress tonight. Light blue and green slacks, that was the deal. We've invited the council member to share just a few kind of opening thoughts, to have the floor for a few minutes, and share his view on what you all just heard, the state of the city, the state of the ward, issues that he sees on the horizon that are of particular interest to us at Cleveland Park. And then we'll have kind of a fireside chat for a few minutes, and then if we've got time at the end, we'll do kind of an open Q&A. But we invited all CPCA members to submit questions kind of in advance, and we consolidated those. And so my questions are based on things that our members, we know are on our members' minds. Very quickly, I don't think Councilmember Frumin needs a great introduction in this room. We all know him very well, but he's represented Ward 3 on the council since 2023 and served in ANC 3E on the ANC for many years before that, and has chaired numerous organizations in the ward. He's a longtime activist. He's served on task forces from Parks and Rec to Jackson Reed, and so there are not very many folks in this ward with a longer history of service to Northwest DC communities than our council members. So welcome, thank you for agreeing to do this. We're glad to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, sort of a nice way to say he's really old. But, I mean, it is, I do feel, I'll digress a little, I do feel incredibly fortunate that this is how I get to finish my professional career. That, I have been very, very active for decades in the community, and now I have the opportunity to be in this role and try to have as big of an impact as I can. And there was a time, there were questions about how much money is there, and there was a time where the city had more money than it knew what to do with. It still spent it, but it had more money than it knew what to do with. And it would have been very fun to be on the council in that period. This is not that period. These are harder times. And these are harder times from a fiscal perspective, and they're harder times thinking about the state of the district in terms of the relationship with the federal government. Both the direct attacks by the federal government on the district and its autonomy, and the impact on the district from the many disruptive things that this administration is doing and the impact that that's having on our economy. And one of the things about the state of the district is one of the first big things that the federal government did was this move on the continuing resolution where they decided to treat, or a staff person in one congressional office decided to treat the district as any other federal agency and cap our spending at FY24 levels. And that's a thing that happened at Saturday night, it came out. And then Sunday, we learned about it, and folks were texting each other, what are we gonna do about this? And Zachary Parker said, we need to get together Monday morning, come up with a strategy, do a press conference with Eleanor Holmes Norton, with the mayor, and with the whole council to stand up against the federal government on this issue and to kick off the lobbying process. And that morning, a bunch of us met in Robert White's office and we talked about what we should do. And then we went up to Phil Mendelson's office and the mayor came and we talked about what it was we were going to do. And then the mayor needed to go, and then Robert and I went to the mayor's office. And you know, this, in retrospect, this seems like obviously we should do this, but in the moment, with all of these people with different political agendas saying we're gonna all get together and do this, that's a tricky thing. And we met with the mayor, and the mayor got on board, and the ball started rolling at 10 o'clock in the morning on that Monday, and at 2 o'clock, we were all on the Hill doing that press conference. And I tell that story, one thing about that story is every step along the way in that process was one big violation of the open meetings laws. But we had to do it because of the circumstance we're in, and that's an issue maybe somebody will ask about the changes to the open meetings laws, but a lot of the genesis of that came from that exigent moment. But we pulled together and got past our individual differences to stand up for the district together in the most effective way. And so the state of the district, that's the indicator of the state of the district. That folks inside of the district government are determined to stay together and to figure out how to navigate this period. Now that's going to get trickier and trickier as we get closer to elections, because the council is 13 politicians, the mayor's a politician. As we get closer to elections, folks will have more and more focus on their individual interests. But I think it's a really positive thing of what we did. But it also is an indicator of just how dangerous this period is for us. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. Sometimes people call on me to be at the head of the protest parade. And maybe people here think that that's what I should do. Nobody inside of the district government is doing that. It's not, do we agree with what the Trump administration is doing? Does the mayor agree with what the Trump administration is doing? No. But we represent 700,000 people, and we have to be careful in every step we take to make sure we're protecting the interests of those 700,000 people, not necessarily doing something that feels good politically if it's not going to make a difference but puts the interests of our residents at risk. On the state of the district and the budget, you gotta love the mayor and her team. They tell a wonderful story about the budget, and there is a ton that is good in this budget. But you're right to pick up on that there's a little bit of magical thinking. Like, we're doing all of these things. We're in hard economic times. Is anything cut? And of course things are cut. So we had somebody from the Legal Council of the Elderly, a big cut to access to justice programs, which are important programs. Cuts to the libraries. So I chair the committee with oversight over the libraries. The budget for personnel at the libraries has been cut, or the ability to hire new people frozen. And if we don't get that unstuck, the libraries will be open instead of 61 hours a week and 7 days a week. They'll be open 40 hours a week and 5 days a week. So in the environmental area, there's a number of different things that have been done. You're not crazy to think, well, wait, if we lost $350 million a year in revenue and we're adding these other things, doesn't something have to be cut? Yes, things have been cut, and now we on the council got that budget. And it doesn't mean the mayor made a set of choices, and many of those choices I 100% agree with. One of them is the way in which schools were funded this year, where I've worked on schools for 20 years. This is the only year where I have not heard from a single school in this area that they have a terrible budget, that they have terrible unmet needs. Every school in Ward 3 thinks that they came out well in this budget. Maybe they want one more position, maybe they want a little more money in this place, but they all feel like they've done well. So there's a lot that's good, but there are a lot of challenges. And I'll wind up, because then the question is, for me, what's on my mind? On my mind, in the ward, very grateful for the capital investments that are being made. MacArthur High School on track, went to the graduation last night, and it's really working well. The investments at Hardy, very important. The investments, we're gonna have to add money for the Chevy Chase Library and Rec Centers. Those dollars are placeholders at this point, but we're gonna have a great library and a great rec center there. One of the challenges in this room, the way in which the voucher programs have worked and some of the impact that has happened up and down Connecticut Avenue continues to be a very serious challenge. We need to be welcoming, we need to provide opportunities for folks who've been down on their luck, but we have to do it, and we have to be doing it better than the way in which we have been doing it. I now am the chair of the Committee on Human Services, so I have oversight over in this area and figuring out what are the things that we can do to make this work better. I think is going to be has been and continues to be a big focus for me. I think more and more people, I think including the mayor, get this, that this isn't working the way in which it was intended, and what are the ways in which we can work together to fix it. Christina Henderson has raised issues around this. Janice Lewis George has raised issues around this. The mayor has been meeting with people in the community. I think we're going to bend the curve on this. I think we are bending the curve, but that's going to be a big focus for me going forward. Also for me going forward is supporting our small businesses, our Main Street organizations, supporting our villages, which have a really big impact throughout the ward. Always a big focus on public safety. Trends in public safety have been very positive, but we have to keep it up, and we have to figure out ways to have an increased presence of police in our commercial districts. A year ago, if I was in this room, this would be the top thing on everyone's mind. It's not on people's minds in the same way, but we need to continue to be focused on making sure that the trends in the public safety space are positive. And then I chair this Committee on Human Services. It's $1 billion budget. There's a lot that's not working in that space. I've been the chair of the committee for all of 4 months, so I don't feel like I have all of the answers yet that I'll change in this budget. There are things that I will try to do in this budget in that space. This year is more of a learning year for me, but I'll be the chair of the committee next year. And so I think there are big things that I would like to do in that space, because whether we like it or not, the feds are going to impose increasing work requirements. And we may impose increasing work requirements for folks in public benefits. But fundamentally, these programs, we want them to be a path out of poverty, not a trap. And sometimes they work as a trap. And so we have to, and this is big, and this may not be the biggest thing in Ward 3, but I think it's a very, very big thing for the city. When we talk about unemployment rates, the unemployment rate is the number of people who are working over, it's 1 minus the number of people who are working over the number of people who are working and the number of people who are looking for a job. So often that'll be like 5%. But missing from that denominator is all the people who are not working, looking for a job. And those people, and there's tens of thousands of them, we gotta help those people get on track so that they're looking for work and so that they have a path to independence. And the system that we've had in place just is not doing that. So what are the things that we can do to make it work better so that we're helping people get to independence for their sake and for ours? Because I think if we can do that, that's really the path to public safety. So with that, I will stop. We can do our fireside chat and then take questions if that's what you'd like.
Wonderful. Is this working? Okay. Fabulous. Thank you. That was a great introduction. It's going to make this a lot easier. You answered some of my questions already. We're going to start very local and kind of zoom out district-wide. But as I know, you know, CPCA in this neighborhood has really been very involved and engaged on the issue of pedestrian safety for many years. And the question that has been on a lot of minds in this neighborhood, particularly in the last few months, has been the questions around traffic safety, pedestrian safety on the 34th Avenue corridor around John Eaton Elementary School. I don't know if folks know, but the council member's office has been working very actively behind the scenes with DDOT to get some action on that question. And so just wanted to ask you kind of what is the status of that as it stands today? And you know, in your view, what is the right solution look like moving forward? Is there a holistic approach, or should we take a more sort of localized, place-based approach?
Excuse me, what was the question? I mean, what is the problem?
Yeah, so here, I'll try to restate it as in part of my response. So on 34th Street, also called Marina Road in different places,
Yeah.
at Ordway, at Newark, there have been a lot of accidents, and cars go at high speeds, and there are cars that turn up on people's lawns and hit a tree, and I don't want to pretend like this is an issue that I discovered. Rick Nash is here from the ANC, and the ANC has worked on this issue for years, trying to get DDOT to focus on these intersections, to come up with safety improvements so that we don't have these kinds of accidents. And what makes those accidents particularly terrifying is that is the path that many children take when they go to Eaton, if they walk to NCRC, so it is a problem. And it's a problem that the ANC has worked on for years and that I've been working on since I got onto the council. And DDOT has a kind of algorithm where they choose what places they're going to focus on for safety improvements. And that algorithm is weighted, it's weighted to lower income parts of the city to some extent, but it also is weighted, it's fundamentally weighted based on where there have been accidents or casualties. And those places pop up higher on their hierarchy of the projects that they choose. And this one has, year after year, not been chosen. despite the fact that for anybody who lives there, you know, I can't go to a party in Cleveland Park without hearing about this and having somebody who lives within a block of it saying that they personally have witnessed this many of these kinds of accidents, but it has not popped up on DDOT through DDOT's algorithm. And I've pushed and pushed to try to get them to add it, and they so far have not, and part of the reason they have not is because a different thing, and I'm not trying to be critical of the ANC, but because the ANC is sensible, the ANC has also talked about safety issues on Reno Road going up to Rodman and down to Lowell. Because while there are issues at these few intersections, there are also issues on other intersections, and DDOT's conclusion is that they don't want to look at two intersections, they want to look at the whole stretch of Reno Road. That is sensible, but the question then becomes, well, when I want you to do these intersections immediately, you don't want to do them until you can do the whole road. When are you going to do the whole road? Because I can live with it if it's pretty soon, but I can't live with it if it's really far off. And what I'm told, and I met with the director of DDOT, is that they will begin doing planning for the whole stretch of Reno Road in FY26, and that we should see improvements that coming out of that study, a plan for what to do on Reno Road that will follow that. I don't think we can do much better than that in terms of getting this done. I think that's where it is. If it were 2 years away, I'd be banging pots and pans, but it's 6 months away, and I think this is the way it's going to be, and we will get these issues addressed. It'll just take, and it already has taken 5+ years, but we're getting there.
Excuse me, I just want to ask something quick. You know, in this world of AI, a lot of things can be done fast. That is the perfect situation. They can put in the parameters and do this. So I don't understand why the city, whatever's using that technology that everybody's, you know, is coming, because that will solve, you know, give you a solution to the problem.
Yeah, so maybe, and I don't know what AI does in terms of coming up with different kinds of inputs, but, and I have said this to the director of DDOT, which is, well, if you need 10 more traffic safety engineers, tell us so you can do more of these, and we'll put it in the budget for 10 more safety engineers. And what 2 DDOT directors have said to me is, well, it doesn't really work that way, because if you gave me 10 more safety engineers, I'd need 100 more implementers, and so we have we're doing as many as they think they can reasonably do. So if AI came up with a plan for every intersection in the city, it would still take an awful long time. What role AI should play, I don't know. I again really wish this was happening faster, but I do feel like we're getting there.
Great, thank you. You talked a little bit about small businesses. This community, we've been very concerned about some of the long-term vacancies in our commercial areas. I think it's gotten a little bit better here in Cleveland Park in the last year, but you know this is an issue that is persistent up and down the Connecticut Avenue corridor and even in other parts of the ward. Curious, you know, one, what is your sort of analysis of the underlying problem? Why do we have this persistent issue of really long-term vacancies? Think about things like you know, the old Walgreens space that's been empty for 6 years, and you know, beyond that, why are small businesses finding it so hard to survive in Ward 3, and what, if anything, can the council and the city do to help revitalize our commercial areas?
So, I mean, one of the things that is a focus for me is support for the main streets, which I think the main streets do a really good job of supporting our local businesses, and there are different grants that are in the budget. The mayor's added more grants in the budget for small businesses. And so in terms of tangible things that we can do, I think those are the kinds of things that I'm trying to do. A different thing is public safety. I mean, a year ago, there were a fair number of our small businesses who felt like the climate had become intolerable and it was very hard for their businesses. And I think that is better, not as good as it needs to be, but better. I think that the Walgreens UDC rented it. And so UDC controls it. In the Van Ness area, there are some issues around UDC ownership that contribute to a vacancy issue because they have their own kinds of challenges, but they're doing better. In Cleveland and Woodley Park, I actually think there's a lot to be pleased about. I mean, we've had a bunch of new businesses open. It's too bad it took Buffalo and Bergen as long as it did to open, but boy, they're off and running and it's great. The people who are going to be doing wonder were in my office the other day. When I heard about it, do people know what I'm talking about? This is the restaurant that's coming in Sam's Park and Shop. That's a model.
Wiggins location, the old wine shop.
I think so. So they're coming. I have not spoken to the Art Tech House people, but at long last there may be something that's about to happen in the old Uptown Theater. I think the Macklin project, lots of people unhappy at different times, but it's on the road to getting done, and with those businesses being filled. In Woodley Park, they got a small grocery store. I actually think, I'm a politician and represent the area, but I think it's more of a good news story in Ward 3 on small businesses than a bad news story right now.
I don't know what you're seeing, but I've been here 26 years. I see a lot of rundown places and empty buildings with homeless sleeping in it and trash all over it, rats on the road, and places have closed down and never, come back up again.
Yeah, but I think actually,
and I'm there every day, going back and forth.
Yes.
The CVS is empty of stuff and behind bars because theft because of the new influx of situations that we have here.
So, I think the city has worked closely with CVS to try to address those things. Things like you may be talking about. There had been a homeless person who was sleeping in the Uptown Theater area, and I actually think if you look at the numbers and you look at the places that are open, that we have net gained businesses in the last year, absolutely, unequivocally. So I'm happy to have a back and forth with you, but there's a whole bunch of people, so I think we need to have our back and forth and let people ask questions. Thank you.
Wait, you talked a lot about your role as chairman of the Human Services Committee, and one of the issues that we have raised with the council, as you know, here in Cleveland Park, is as far as at the top, we want to make sure that the people that are entitled to wraparound services, whether they're from DHS or DPH, that they're getting them, and that those services are of high quality. And one of the issues that we have consistently heard is that there is not adequate availability of services. The services are not being delivered specifically in Ward 3. And so, kind of give you the big picture overview. Are there things that can be done specifically in Ward 3, specifically, I guess, along the Connecticut Avenue corridor in particular, to make sure that the folks that are entitled to wraparound support services because they're in one of the housing programs, that they're able to get that?
Yeah, so specifically in Ward 3 and specifically in this area, one of the things that we asked for in our budget letter to the mayor was to have a kind of substation on Connecticut Avenue that could be a base for the police and also for service providers, because we see very high needs. The number of police calls is very high, and the calls for mental health services are high. And so I don't know that we're going to have the capacity to do that in the budget on our own, but that's an idea that we continue to pursue. There is a more fundamental issue, and the fundamental issue, and this is one that I think more and more people on the council are starting to get, is when a person presents to get a housing voucher, an assessment is made of what their profile, mental health profile is, and what's the right level of services for them. And there was a period where what we had were vouchers for independent living. And when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so we would provide people with a voucher for independent living when their needs were much greater. And so we need to focus on the evaluation process going in, because when a person needs a higher level of support, we should be providing that, and not just crossing our fingers and hoping it's going to work out. There are a lot of complaints about different things in different buildings up and down Connecticut Avenue, but I've never heard anybody complain about Woodley House, which is down a little south of the zoo, which is a place that supports folks with very high needs. But they do it right, and it works. And So Others Might Eat has a project, a facility also in Woodley Park, and I don't hear a word about that. So we need a continuum of housing options for folks where we're meeting people where they are, and we don't have that. Yeah, so we need to solve it going in and have the capacity to be sending people to the level of support that makes sense for them. We also need to make it easier to get people out if their behavior is such that it's really damaging to themselves and people around them. And there is a push to try to change the laws around eviction. The mayor has included that in her rental act. Others are focused on it, where there's a public safety issue that's created by somebody, and you need to have an expedited basis to get that person out. It might be that you get that person out, but you find a place for them that is more suited to their level of need. We need to fix it going in. We need to have the inventory of housing to meet people's needs, and we need the power to address the issue if it's not working.
And you need
I'm sorry.
rent control.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're
Let's
just gonna.
get through this portion, and then we'll open the floor for some additional questions. Yep. Okay, thank you very much. And then kind of zooming back out to a big citywide issue again. It's June, football season is coming. Everyone wants to hear about the stadium. First, can you tell us sort of where you stand on the proposed deal and what the key issues are for you? We understand now that the council is considering separating the stadium package from the broader budget request. And so, I think like the question for all of us, and the question for you is at a time, when there are so many issues affecting the city and affecting the budget, what, in your view, can the council do to make sure that the proposed deal really truly benefits, all residents of the district, and is a good investment for taxpayers?
Okay, so biggest picture, like when you see a story in the Washington Post and they show pictures of the different council members and which camps they're in, there's a certain number who are for it, as is, and were from day one, and there's a certain number that are against it, and were from day one, and there's a certain number who are in the it depends category. And it will not surprise you that I am in the it depends category. It would be my nature to be that way. And I think we all need to dig in to understand whether this is the best deal for the District of Columbia. it is not that I am antithetically opposed to a stadium. I'm open to a stadium. The line that I've used that I have thought was so good, but it's never been quoted, is I don't want it more than Josh Harris. And so, and we need to look deeply at this deal and see whether we're getting the best deal for the residents of the District of Columbia, and whether there are things that could be done better, whether there are priorities that should be emphasized in it. And it's just a fact that that is going to take time. That the idea that we would do this, that the deal got presented to us while we're in this struggle with the federal government, and then when we got, right, just as we got the budget, and we're going to make a decision in 4 or 6 weeks and try to have an impact on the deal to protect the interests of the residents of the District of Columbia, it's preposterous. And when the Audi Field deal was done, it was like a year. When the National Stadium done, it was like a year. I don't want it to take a year, but it's not going to be done by July 14th when we have the first vote on the budget, period. It's not going to be done. And I guess I'll say I hear you, and I know the mayor says, we gotta do it, and if we don't do it, we're gonna lose this. If the commanders really insist that we vote up or down on this deal by July 14th, what the hell kind of a partner would they be? It's just, and take it back, that I think don't jam us in this way. I'm not an opponent. I could very well be a supporter, but don't jam us. It's a mistake. And my job is to take a hard look at this deal and make sure that I can look each of you in the eye and say whatever it is I did was justified and thought through and meticulous. And I can't do that by July 15th.
What more do you need to know?
I mean, there's a ton more that you need to. You need to look into every aspect of the deal. This is $1 billion. And it is also $2.7 billion of outside investment. That makes it very attractive. But looking at all the aspects of the deal, looking at what other kinds of things could be done, getting an analysis of the deal, comparing it to other jurisdictions. The council has hired the Robert Bob group to provide us with an analysis of this deal compared to deals around the country. That analysis isn't going to be done before July 14th. Do you really want me to sign off on $1 billion commitment without having taken a close examination of it? And I think people who are for it and people who are against it should all take a breath and say, yeah, the responsible thing is to take a hard look at it.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that answer. As you all know, the library will lock us in here at 8 o'clock if we're not careful, so I'm keeping one eye on the clock in the back of the room. When we do have a few minutes of CPCA business that I want to make sure that we save 5 minutes for at the end, but we do have time for 2, 3, 4 quick questions. Please ask them as questions, not 6-part questions, but 1-part questions. Go ahead.
Hi, Madam. Happy to hear that you're now doing that sponsor program. You and I have talked a little bit about that before. I have a request instead of a question. A small steering group is being formed to try to do an objective analysis about the program.
Attention, embarkations, the time is now 7:45, and the library will be closing in 15
programmatic
minutes.
information.
All meeting rooms, study rooms, and restrooms are now
And we
closed.
count on you to help us do
No new library card accounts.
Absolutely. I don't know what data, and we have done this in a couple of different ways where people have asked us for data. And getting some of the data is a challenge. And sometimes you get data from one place and it shows one thing and then another place and it's hard to square. But absolutely, we're trying to get our arms around that. And to make it something that's transparent and accessible to all.
Good, we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Matt, what are you thinking about doing about Topa?
Speak up.
The question is, what am I thinking about doing about TOPA? We just had the hearing on this, and
Maybe you want to say what it is.
yeah, TOPA is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, and so when a building is sold, the tenants have a right to purchase it, and they have the right to negotiate in different kinds of ways. They have the right to sell their right to purchase it. And folks in the building community have said that TOPA has become a big barrier to doing transactions and improving the housing and expanding on the housing stock. One of the things, the mayor has proposed a 25-year period after a building is built where a building would be exempt from TOPA. Councilmember Nadeau has proposed a 3-year period where a building would be exempt from TOPA. And to give a little flavor here, so when somebody builds a new building, until that building is filled, the financing for that building requires paying a higher interest rate because it's risky. How long will it take to fill the building? Will the building get filled? And so what happens is there's a certain kind of investor who invests in getting things built, and then the building gets to what's called stabilization, where it gets to about 95% occupancy. And then it's a different proposition from a business perspective. Now it's got its established income stream, and the building can be sold to somebody and financed at a lower interest rate. And so that period that it takes to get to stabilization, if somebody who wants to build a new building thinks, I'm gonna get hung up with TOPA if I try to sell, it keeps out those big investments. Is 3 years enough to encourage those dollars to come in? I don't think so. Is 25 years enough or too much to make that happen? I think 25 years is too much. Somewhere between the 3 years and the 25 years, I think could make sense.
Well, I mean, where? 10? And name a number.
Well, when we did this for downtown, I think we did 10 or 15, and I would be more comfortable in that kind of range of a 10 or 15. The other thing that the mayor's done on TOPA is she said, if the building is filled with more than half of the people have incomes over 80% of average median income, which is, just think of it as $80,000, then that building would be exempt from TOPA. Because the idea is TOPA is there to protect low and moderate income people. Do I think that there is an income level above which an exemption from TOPA could make sense, because you don't need to be doing that for folks at very, very high incomes? We have some buildings that are very high incomes. This also applies depending on the age of the building. I'm not sure that the mayor's mechanism for how to do that works. I asked at a recent hearing for an explanation from different city officials, and I thought that they got it wrong and I had to correct them. So even they, I think, but in principle, do I agree with her that there may be buildings over a certain price where it could make sense for it to be exempt from TOPA? I do. And so I think we want to preserve TOPA rights for the people for whom it was clearly intended, but also we want to open the door to more investment. So I hope that gives you something of an answer.
Why wouldn't it be open to everyone? I mean, regardless of the building, if somebody's going to come in and buy the building, regardless of the income of the tenants, why wouldn't they have a say in how that building, or who that building gets sold to, and be able to negotiate some sort of buyer's agreement to get the building in the order they would like?
Yeah, I mean, that's why, I think there are some I could live with exemptions at a pretty high income. I think we're having an example right now. I think, there's the Avalon on Alphamont.
That's the building on.
And I understand, have you guys entered into an
We
agreement?
chose to buy the rent control because people have been there for 30, 40 years and they have a right to decide who will buy that building, rent control versus affordable housing where people are gonna get kicked out. And they can be evaluated every year and there is no more stabilized housing because you can be kicked out if you're ineligible for that year.
I mean, I think, and as this TOPA conversation has been going on, I've been wanting to see what happened at your building. Because I think your building does, I just heard today, am I right that you picked W.C. Smith?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a choice between W.C. Smith and a company called True Ground, which was doing the 80 AMI thing, the 60 AMI thing.
So let's get together and talk, and I want to hear about what your experience was, because it'll inform how I think about these issues.
Can I say something on that? I live at Central Gardens, which is a perfect example of a building that we had a TOPA, we all came in, within 18 months, 50% of the apartments there were given to the housing, it's just that we're taken out of rent control, and then raised more, and we begin to have all these problems with the situation. So it was a horrible deal for us. It wasn't a lot of money, and then they increased the rents even as they were working on the stuff. So all the tenants that were there in rent control, not only had to screw with that, because once the other housing came in, they had to raise their rents to match what the public housing was giving. So it was a total disaster. I'll be glad to give you all the information. I kept it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have followed Cedric Gardens closely. Karen Gaston is a person who I'm in have been in a lot of contact with. I have legislation that would say that, and this gets technical, but if, the housing authority is supposed to pay a reasonable rent to support a voucher tenant. And there was a time where the city was paying extravagantly high rents to do this, and partly the city, partly the city was really wanted to get people housed, and so they didn't. It was at a time when we had a ton of money, and they didn't care what the cost was. HUD came back and said, "You're not even doing a rent reasonableness test," and then they pivoted and they're doing a rent reasonableness test, which has lowered in some places the rents some, but they're still quite high. I have legislation that would say in the setting of a rent stabilized building, the reasonable rent is the rent stabilized rent. And that would move away from that intense financial incentive to avoid rent stabilization by renting to a subsidized tenant. And it isn't, all our buildings need to be open to folks, but when a building goes to be 50% of subsidized tenants, but without the supports that go with it, it's a problem. And my bill got like 10 co-introducers and had a hearing. There was a pushback, and we have not been able to get it over the line. Although increasingly, the kind of experience that you're talking about is turning up in other wards. It's turning up in Ward 4, it's turning up in Ward 6, and I remain optimistic that I'll get it over the line. But the phenomenon that you're talking about, I mean, I have legislation that should address it, we just haven't been able to get it over the finish line.
I'm sorry, we have to cut it there because we are about out of time. They're going to kick us out of here. I mean, as Bar said, you're all welcome to join us for a drink across the street. Hopefully, the council member and our colleagues from the mayor's office will join us. You're certainly more than welcome. I don't know if we're entitled or allowed to buy you a drink or not, but if we are, we would love to. But thank you very much for taking the time to come here. Yes, we've got a mug for you too.
How many of these mugs do you have already?
We've got a couple more if you'd like one. Yeah, and then very quick bit of CPCA housekeeping. Just wanted to share that our annual board election is completed. As you probably all know, we run our elections digitally. Voting closed at 7 o'clock. Pleased to say that our new board was elected unanimously. We didn't have any contested seats this year, so the only thing that we really needed to do was achieve a quorum. We did that, actually made 30% of our members vote, which is a new record since we've gone online. So these are our newly elected board members, including Frumin who's here, who's brand new to the board this year. We're very excited to have you joining us. As Bar said, we're thankful for the contributions of many of our board members who are leaving us after many years of service to the neighborhood. Most are going to stay in Cleveland Park and stay involved in the organization, and so we're grateful for that and happy to keep them engaged. And then that's it. As we said, please join us across the street for a quick drink. If you are not a member of CPCA but would like to join, there's a QR code in the back of the room. You can scan on your phones to sign up or visit our website, cpca.dc.org. We've got a brand new website this year, which we're excited about. And then please don't forget, June 28th, CPCA is co-hosting with Rosedale the Cleveland Park Community Picnic. And so I encourage you all to come and join that. Bring music, there's going to be some food trucks. You're welcome to bring your own picnic as well. It's a really, really fun event. These are the kinds of neighborhood and community building activities that we love to support. And your contributions and membership dues as members fund these kinds of things. And so we're thankful to all of you and excited for our year ahead. We'll have some activities and meetings to announce for the fall coming up shortly. So we'll share that information as soon as we can. The other thing I wanted to say while we're at the mayor's office here is Kendall has said that it's okay if we share the budget slides with you all. We'll do that following this meeting. She's going to send me the final PDF deck, and we'll send that out via email probably the next day or so. All right? Thank you all very much for coming.